Mrs. O'Meara said she was sick and tired of having kids underfoot all the time. "Jason is acting really strange," she said. "He goes around mooning and bumping into things." So she chased him out of the house with orders to practice soccer with his friends. It was the first time she ever had to order him to practice. Mrs. O'Meara offered to drop Kim and third sister at the Science Center. I had hoped to play with my friend Matthew, but he had to go to the dentist. He protested that it was totally unfair for someone to see a dentist during vacation. "Life is totally unfair," said his mother as she dragged him off. So Mrs. O'Meara took me along with Kim and third sister, who didn't mind me tagging along. It turned out to be a good thing we went together. The Science Center is a big museum with lots of buttons to push. Things go squirting and squeaking and beeping and gurgling. We're supposed to learn important scientific facts from all this. In spite of that, it's loads of fun. While Kim and third sister played with machines that speeded up their voices and made them sound like Donald Duck, I went over to look at a box containing poisonous spiders. Next to that was a tall glass case with a section of beehive in it. I was just about to go over when I saw Paul Eng standing behind the case, looking at the bees. I rushed over to third sister and grabbed her arm. "I saw Paul over there," I whispered. "Come on, this is our chance to carry out our plan." Third sister and I hurried over to the case of bees, and she began her speech. Then she stopped. Kim had to be in the act, too, and she was still back at the sound machine, making like Donald Duck. We ran back and got Kim over, but by then Paul had already gone. Looking around frantically, we spotted him going into the dinosaur exhibit room. He stopped and peered at a Tyrannosaurus, which roared menacingly. We quickly positioned ourselves behind the dinosaur. Third sister and Kim opened their mouths and tried to start our script. "Roar!" went the Tyrannosaurus. The three of us looked at one another and shook our heads. This wasn't going to work. I waited until I saw Paul reach one of the quiet dinosaurs, an armored Stegosaurus. There was no time to be lost. "Come on," I hissed to the other two. Again, we got ourselves into position, and Kim cleared her throat. "So what makes you think your sister likes Paul Eng?" she asked. "Well, she was impressed by the way he played in that ball game," said third sister, "and she isn't usually interested in American sports." I came in with my lines. "And I thought she didn't like him. I thought she only liked boys who spoke Chinese." "That's what I thought too," said third sister. "Second sister told me what really changed her mind was how good he is in math. He's in her math class, you know." As I listened to our act, the lines suddenly sounded really stiff and unnatural. How could anyone believe something as lame as this? Maybe Kim and third sister felt that way too. Their voices petered out and stopped. Then, without another word, we began to shuffle off. I didn't dare to look behind me at Paul to see how he had taken our words. We went to the food court, where we were supposed to wait for Mrs. O'Meara to pick us up. For a while, the three of us sipped our drinks without saying anything. I broke the silence and got the last drop of my drink with a loud slurp. "Do you think he fell for the act?" "I don't know," muttered Kim. "It was okay when we were practicing the other day, but it sounded awfully phony just now." Third sister and I nodded. We both knew what she meant. In a way, I was almost relieved. Suddenly, third sister grabbed my arm. "Isn't that him over there?" she hissed. She was right. Paul was standing at the pie counter buying some refreshments. He was also buying something for his companion, the girl standing next to him. It seemed that we had been wasting our time. Paul already had a girlfriend. I felt a kick on my leg from third sister. She had seen Paul's girlfriend too. I nodded and pointed out the couple to Kim. The three of us sighed in unison. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have found out whether Paul already had a girlfriend before we started all this." We sat around glumly and thought about all the time and energy we had wasted, and then I heard a step behind me and a soft cough. "Hello," said Paul Eng's voice. I spun around and stared. Paul and his girlfriend were standing by our table. "Hi, Paul," I said weakly. Then I said the first thing that came into my head. "I'd give anything to hit a home run." Third sister had better manners. "Hi, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Mary, and this is my friend Kim." Paul looked embarrassed. That wasn't surprising after the conversation he had overheard. In his place, I would have avoided the Yang family like chicken pox. But for some strange reason, Paul didn't go away. He just stood there. 3 months seemed to go by as we all waited and squirmed. Finally, the girl with Paul poked him. He cleared his throat, swallowed, and said, "This is my sister Melanie. You met her at the dim sum restaurant, didn't you?" Now I realized that the girl looked familiar. She wasn't his girlfriend at all. She was his sister. There was still hope our trick might work. Melanie poked her brother again, and again Paul cleared his throat. "You have another sister, don't you? Her name is Yinglan, right?" His voice sort of died off. Third sister and I nodded solemnly. "That's right," I acknowledged. "I do have another sister called Yinglan." There was a pause. The 5 of us stared at one another some more, and 3 more months passed. It's hard for Americans to remember Chinese names. Unlike third sister, second sister refused to give herself an English name. I thought it was a good sign that Paul knew second sister's name, since that meant he had really paid attention to her, even before we played our trick. Melanie poked Paul for the 3rd time, and for the 3rd time he cleared his throat. A family of frogs must have set up housekeeping with his tonsils. I noticed Yinglan in my math class," he began. "But she's only a sophomore, isn't she?" "She got put a year ahead," admitted third sister. Then she added quickly, "It's not that she's a math genius or anything. It's just that Chinese schools are more advanced in math." Very good," said Paul absently. Then he must have realized that he sounded foolish, and his voice faded. Suddenly he took a deep breath and said in a rush, "Does your sister ever go out with boys? You know, on dates?" We did it! Our trick had worked! I caught third sister's eye, and we both smothered an urge to laugh. Paul's words were almost exactly the same as the ones second sister had overheard while we were doing dishes. Paul must have seen the laughter in our eyes. He turned red as a sunset. Dragging Melanie after him, he rushed out of the food court. He almost crashed into Mrs. O'Meara, who had come to pick us up. "Who was that?" asked Mrs. O'Meara, staring after the Yangs. "Friends of yours?" "I hope so," third sister said slowly. She looked at me and then at Kim. The 3 of us beamed at one another and silently congratulated ourselves on our success.